Good afternoon, I hope everyone's well today, thank you for watching. There was a interesting exchange in the House of Commons today that I want to unpack, and a misrepresentation in what was said in the chamber by our beloved BBC. And yes, that is sarcasm, we all hate the BBC. So it's about capital punishments, it's about a right of censor MP, Rupert Lowe, and the Prime Minister. So I'm going to play two clips and we're going to look at what the BBC actually did as well. So we're going to proceed with the clips now. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, every week we hear of a brutal murder, rape or stabbing, far too often perpetrated by someone who should not be in our country to begin with. Does the Prime Minister agree that for cases where the guilt is so undeniable, the crime so monstrous, the evil so irredeemable, the reintroduction of the death penalty for both foreign and domestic criminals should be put to the British people in a legally binding referendum?
So there's a couple of things I want to say on what Rupert Lowe is proposing there. First of all, he's saying that it should go to a referendum, and he's saying that it's only in the most extreme cases, i.e. when the guilt is incontrovertible. What about the Welsh choir boy from last year in Southport? Or what happened to drummer Lee Rigby about a decade ago? These cases are incontrovertible. There is no way that these people didn't do it. They've admitted as such. Alright? We should have a capital punishment for cases like this, in my view. In the 1960s, when the capital punishment was abolished, it was done without a public outcry. It was done without public consent. It was done essentially because the liberal elites, the ruling class, decided that they were uncomfortable with it, so they wanted to get rid of it. There was no support, general support in the population for it to be abolished. The second issue is there is a deterrent effect. In the 5 years from 1964 to 1969, when it was effectively suspended, not abolished, there was a uptick in capital murder offences that would have carried the capital punishment of 125%. So the evidence is very much in. The public didn't consent to it being abolished, and there was a deterrent impact and effect from the penalty. Alright? These are the things you need to remember. And this is the Prime Minister's response.
Can I first say that any attack is to be condemned, and it is absolutely right, and we're determined that there is a criminal justice response in relation to attack, however it's carried out and whoever it's carried out by. But reintroducing the death penalty is not the answer to this. It didn't work.
Now, when the Prime Minister says it didn't work, what does he actually mean? Does he mean it didn't work because the sentence wasn't carried out effectively? I.e. the people didn't, their lives didn't end? Or is he meaning it didn't work because it wasn't a deterrent? Or does he mean it didn't work because of miscarriages of justice? If it's either of the second two, the miscarriages of justice, Rupert Lowe even says it would only be for incontrovertible cases where guilt is beyond a shadow of a doubt. And second of all, it was a deterrent. And we have the data and we have the stats on that. Now, from Tuti Akia, a human rights lawyer who's gone around the world arguing against capital punishment in the most heinous of cases, you can look it up. It's absolutely disgusting that this was what he made his bread and butter on. Very disingenuous, because he goes on to say in a moment that he's referring to miscarriages of justice.
When it was in place, it led to the death of those that in fact were turned out were innocent. But what we must do is improve, as we are, the criminal justice response in this country.
By reducing prison sentences, I believe the government's actually thinking about letting criminals out, even violent criminals, after 30% of the sentence. Alright? That's a joke. That is an absolute joke. So that's the first clip I wanted to show you. Now, this is what the media, the BBC, ran with from that little exchange in the House of Commons. Independent Rupert Lowe, as asked the PM, will put death penalty for overseas and foreign criminals to the public in a referendum. Keir Starmer said the death penalty is not the answer and we must improve the criminal justice response. Is there an issue with what the BBC has put out there? Yes, I would say so. The reason I would say so is that's not what Rupert Lowe said. Rupert Lowe said for domestic and foreign criminals. He wasn't making a two-tiered argument or approach. He was saying that everybody needs to be treated the same. The BBC had to come out with a retraction, and this was the retraction. This post replaces the previous posts to more accurately reflect what was said. You only did it because you got caught, and this is what you see with the state propaganda. The state, the elites, the consensus is capital punishment has no place in a civilised society. We didn't vote for that, but they want to enforce their worldview, and this is how they will enforce the worldview. So, let me know, do you think capital punishment should be back with us, or do you think that it was right that it was abolished? There are no wrong answers, all opinions are valid. Now we're going to get on to what Rupert Lowe's response to this this disinformation from the BBC. Alright, so we're going to play this response now.
Good everybody. I'm basically doing this broadcast from my cubbyhole of an office in Parliament where we have a large amount of scaffolding, and so forgive the backdrop, but the point of my message is that I asked a perfectly reasonable question in Parliament earlier on, Prime Minister's questions, which as usual Keir Starmer failed to answer. The BBC have managed to misquote me in an appalling way. They posted and then deleted an incorrectitude. One would think that after the debacle of the Panorama issue, where they effectively cut and spliced and completely misinformed the public as to what was said by one of our greatest allies, Donald Trump in the United States, one would think that some humility after their recent faux pas would be in order. But to now misquote me clearly, I think now demands a massive apology. It won't be the first one I've had from the BBC, but I'm expecting an apology, and I'd like it as soon as possible. I'm sure everybody agrees, and if the death penalty referendum that I requested was put to the people, I have no doubt that rather like Brexit, they would vote in favour. But in a democratic society, you have to be swayed by the majority, not the minority.
I completely agree with Rupert Lowe on this particular one, so we'll end that one there. We'll end it there. So what do you make of the BBC conflating and confusing what Rupert Lowe said in the chamber today? I think it's unacceptable. I think most of what the BBC does is unacceptable. What do you think to Rupert's idea about maybe putting a referendum to the people on the reinstatement of capital punishment? It's something I agree with. As I say, you don't have to agree. You may have a different opinion. But it should only be in the cases where the evidence is incontrovertible. I think that would be a safe assumption to make. Now, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, give me a like and subscribe. Let me know if you think the BBC are going to apologise, or they only removed the story when they got caught. I appreciate your time. Have a good day.